time to break out the 2019 NBA draft class because we have a good debate coming up. It started on social media thanks to Kevin, and it has spiraled into our opening topic, but we are also going to talk a little bit about the 76ers and the Nets and the Heat a little in this episode later on. But for warm-up, we wanted to jump right into the spiciness that was this debate happening on social media.
Well, yeah, so I want to kind of just talk about the back. So this all started obviously earlier in the week. I think it was right before we dropped the midweek episode. And if you haven't
Sure.
checked out the midweek episode, we did some Top Shot pack rips last week. So go and check that out. We had a lot of fun. But basically, it was the ridiculous Ja night, where he did it all. He had the
Oh, yeah.
quarterback play from Steven Adams, who, what a pass, too, for Adams to just put that on the money like that. Where then Ja just like hits the buzzer beater with 0.4 left or whatever. Obviously, the massive dunk over Pirtle. That's the one that I think everybody's going to talk about. Just probably dunk of the year.
My thing is the dunk is phenomenal, but I think the more impressive thing was making that shot.
I think the more impressive thing was making that shot too, because as crazy as it sounds, like Ja's done this so many times this year that
Right.
maybe we're taking it for granted, but like posters happen. Like, don't get me wrong, that was a phenomenal dunk, probably dunk of the year. But yeah, that just to me the
Well,
play
and
was harder with the lack of time, with him
right.
falling out of bounds the way he was, and
When
with Adams too, having to put that on the money like that,
when you
going full
have
court.
when you have .4 left on the clock, you're not really expecting there to even be a chance at making a bucket, Like it's just
Right.
one of those Hail Mary, throw it up there. And that was, I mean, it was
It
still a
was.
hair. It was, but it was more impressive than we've seen like just a half court throw,
No, I agree. I think it was too. No, I agree. I think it's
And
one of the more.
the low key part of that was the pass. Like that's the other part of it. That pass was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, everything about it, that to me was the most impressive play. And then obviously people were talking about the range as well. He hit a couple of
Sure.
deep threes that game. I mean, he's doing it all. And so that came up, obviously. And it also goes back to the last episode because we talked a little bit more about the Pelicans. With, by the way, Pelicans smoking the Utah Jazz last night.
Pelicans are
Quiet,
cooking.
dude, they're in playing position. Shout out to Willie Green. Willie Green's doing a real great job there on the coaching front.
I would like to say 2 episodes now because we dropped a midweek. I mentioned that I thought the Pelicans could get them in a spot where they're in a play-in situation, and it's looking like that's going to be the case as of right now. Like they're really rolling.
And that's why you make the CJ McCollum move. So it's good to see if that works out. That's exactly what you need. And if they get into playing position, I think you have to be happy. And it certainly appeases Zion. But I go back to the point with how well Ja Morant is doing this year. And then the secondary, which made me kind of go into the question more, is the Sixers played the Knicks twice in the past week. So I watched a lot of RJ Barrett. Let me tell you something. The Knicks might be terrible this year, and they had another just heartbreaker last night where they missed a free throw, and Cam Johnston goes down and just buries that deep three-pointer to win the game for Phoenix. But the fact that like RJ Barrett has been for sure the shining star this year, where it's like, no, he's taken the leap. He's really good. And then even just like we watch a ton of Cleveland. We talked about them this year. And so it all started the question with how well Darius Garland has been. And so for me, I decided to just kind of put it out there. I was asking my friends, but I put it out on Twitter. I said, if you have the 2019 draft, because this is a draft that's already looking phenomenal in hindsight.
Sure. Yeah.
And you have the number 1 pick. Because like, let's not rewrite history. Zion Williamson was the clear consensus number 1 pick. If
No
Zion
doubt.
Williamson had no health issues, listen, it'd be him and Ja. Like, it would be him and Ja. You could argue either one for me, but like, I still would probably take Zion 1 with no health issues. Now, obviously, given what we know, I think the question, what it came down to and what I was thinking, I think everyone universally, I'd be pretty surprised if you weren't taking Ja Morant at this point over Zion, just because there's no health risk with Ja. Ja's, again, top 5 in probably MVP voting this year. Like, with everything that the Grizzlies, as good as their drafting has been and as good as all the sporting cast has been, like Ja is the leader of that movement there in Memphis as they're, chasing a second seed now, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the point though is how many players would you take over Zion at 1 with the injury risk? I think it's clear that Zion is undoubtedly dominant when he's on the floor. This is a guy who coolly averaged 27 and 7 last year. Like, he's every bit as good as he's hyped up to be when he plays. But it is a when he plays thing at this point.
Yeah. And that's where I think the debate part of this came in, because my response to you, as I looked at the draft class of of 2019 was, okay, before I really get deep into it with the stats and see if I compare what, stuff like that, was let me just go down and see players' names that make me go, all right, let me look a little deeper into that. Let me see if I really would take them over Zion, or if maybe it was just a name thing that made me stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I responded to you on Twitter, was like, would I get slaughtered out here if I said 5? Now, since then and now, I've already talked myself out of 1. So we're at 4 for me.
That's
but
good. 5 is crazy. I'm not there yet.
I don't know. And I get it. Like you said, Zion is so good when he plays. But it's when he plays, right? Like, we have 85 games in 3 seasons.
Yeah.
For example, RJ Barrett are at 180 games. They almost have 100 more games than Zion, which is like, and I think that's where everybody's going to differ, is where is that value in on the court and off the court? And I wanted to bring up Cam on the Suns. He was in that draft class too. Well, he just dropped, 38 last night, hit a game winner. I'm not saying I would take him over it, but he's on the court. You know what I mean? Like, there is a part of that has to come into debate. If he's not on the court, do they win that game? Maybe. I don't know. Where are we on that? But I think that's where the debate is. So I think you and I pretty much agreed on Ja and Garland, right?
Yeah, I'm at 3. Full disclosure, I'm at 3, and I just kind of talked myself into 3 because I still am like, Zion Williamson is 21 years old, is undoubtedly good when he plays, and I think his ceiling is still tremendously higher than a lot of the guys below him. That said, this could look radically different in as soon as a year. Like, if he misses a significant portion of next year, then yeah, I'm at the point where you have to just start where reality is, and where you have to go with the guys that are on the floor, because this draft class, like you said, it does look really good. There are multiple guys that, even right after Zion, that you could argue to be in that conversation here sooner than later. We're going to talk about a couple of them. For me, Ja Morant is the clear one. If you redraft today, knowing what you know, Ja Morant is the undoubted number 1.
There's no doubt. I don't think, I think somebody, unless they wanted to try and argue a Zion side of things. But if you were giving me any other names, I think you're trying to push an agenda to highlight somebody.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that you take over Morant. I think Morant's the clear one.
Yeah.
At that point with 2 and 3 is where it gets a little, where I'm not quite sure yet. I would, though, at this point, knowing what I know, I would draft Darius Garland and RJ Barrett ahead of Zion. They're safer. I think the ceiling is really high for both of these guys. I mean, hell, Garland against the Sixers last night was going crazy. He had he's got the whole package. He's not afraid of it. He's able to a 3-level scorer. He gets his teammates involved. Like, he's a big reason Cleveland has taken the leap as well. RJ Barrett, like we said, has been a gem. He's been an efficient scorer for the Knicks this year. He's really taken on a large portion of that offense. Like, to me, their star potential and their upside, with the just complete lack of injury risk. I know Garland has missed time, but no, I would take Garland and RJ for sure over Zion at this point. I have Zion at a hard 4, though. That's where I draw the line. There's a couple that are close, and I know you're going to talk about one of them. I mean, the first one behind him for me is Tyler Hero, and Tyler Hero is the next one for me that would crack it and jump him up.
I think he would be the next on that list for sure.
Yeah, you're going to make the arguments, and again, we're going to talk about Heat later on the podcast. But you looked at a lot of Hero's numbers when we were bringing this up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, right now, dropping 20 points per game, it actually went down since whenever we were tweeting about it. So that maybe is a knock against me. But, I mean, he's cracking 20 points per game, about 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 43% field goal percentage, 38% from 3. That's this season, which is about, points-wise, is up. I should say rebounds and assists are up, not a ton, but they are up. So, having himself obviously a good season, and the Heat are where they are. So I think there's a value in that. But I think the response when I said Hero, or in our tweet conversation, was like, we forget how much Zion was dropping in his 85 games that he did play. And while I understand that, it's like, but like Hero, if we're just going by points, Hero's still putting up 20, and he's doing it in way more games. You know what I mean? And he's on the court this season. And again, like I said, I think it's just always going to come back for me. The being on the court part of the argument is where we're going to come back to.
The most important thing in sports is availability. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good you are if you're not playing games.
I thought this was interesting. I was just looking at this. I have it up on Basketball Reference. If you filter the 2019 draft by games, like players or games played by the players, Zion is 36th on that list.
Man, this is a really good draft.
36th.
This is a really good draft. Like I would take Hero. I would take Hero for. But I mean, DeAndre Hunter's been good. Rui Hachimura's been good. He's finally playing again. Cameron Johnson, who you mentioned, has been good. Hero, Nikhil Alexander Walker still looks like he has some upside. I mean, in the 20s, Matisse, the 20s are great. I mean, the back of Matisse Thybulle, Brandon Clark, and Grant Williams. That looks like a really 3 back-to-back like good picks. It looks like in the 20s for the Sixers, Grizzlies, and Celtics.
Well, and maybe this is me just trying to say, hey, don't forget about this guy. But last year, if we were talking about last year, this year obviously is different because he's not starting, and the Bulls are where they are. But like Colby White last year was having himself a decent year. I mean, started in 54 games, had 15 points per game, and again, I know Zion did better in the few games in the games that he played, and so I'm not trying to argue that Zion's worse than Colby White. But again, back to the availability. Even now, he's played 15 or started 15 games this season, played 44 for Chicago, still dropping about 13 points, and he's out there at the end of the day. So I wonder where that line has to be drawn. And I think I'm with you. I think from a Tyler Hero standpoint, I might have him over Zion.
I'm close. I'm not there yet.
But it's close.
Yeah, I'm really close for sure. Best value picks in this draft, by the way, Talon Horton Tucker at 46 by the Lakers. Probably the only nice thing we'll say about the Lakers on this podcast. And Terrence Mann at 48 by the Clippers. Good pick down there. A couple on Twitter, and shout out to my guy John Miller from high school, who was talking about Zion bringing up 27 and 7. I need to know. Let me know in the group chat how many guys are still taking over him. Jay Ferry says he would just take one. He just Ja at this point. Still think Zion is very good and just 21. Stuart O'Kell says 2. He is at the point where he's taking RJ. He's taking R.J. Barrett and Ja. He's not taking Garland,
Not Garland?
which I thought was a little surprising. I thought Garland for sure would be in the lock. Taking R.J.
Players that have more points. I think this is a nod for Zion, right? So players that have more total points from that draft than him, there's only 5, which is Tyler Hero, Garland, R.J., Ja, and Colby White. Mm-hmm. So or Zion in 85 games is only 300 points behind Colby White in total. Mm-hmm. So Colby White's played 178 games. So he's almost got 100 games on him. So that is a huge nod on the Zion side of things. That ceiling.
Zion's ceiling and potential is the only reason that he's still going forward. Like, that's the thing. It's like Zion, like, we got to remember, this kid coming out of Duke was one of these, like, I hate the word generational prospect because it feels like we say there's one of those every year, but like he was one of those, like, as elite of a prospect as you can get. It felt like a can't miss as long as he stayed healthy. But again, that's been the story because he dealt with a little bit of health at Duke too.
And I think from a nod, since I just gave Zion a nod on the positive side of thing, I'll play devil's advocate. I think there could be an argument made against the drama in the locker room that has kind of come because of Zion, whether it's family members saying, like, that is a knock on him too. It's like, bro, you've only played 85 games. Like, let's chill out here,
Honestly, as crazy as it sounds, if you're going to demand a trade after 85 because you just don't want to be in New Orleans, you should have just held out then at that point, borderline.
Yeah. Don't even make him waste the pick on you.
Oh, it's different sports, but it's like he pulled the Eli Manning, where Eli Manning said, I'm not in football, and the NFL said, I'm not playing for the Chargers, I'm only playing for the Giants, and they basically forced their hand. Now, the reason, thankfully, the only reason that doesn't get talked about more is because Phillip Rivers ended up being good.
Yeah,
like Phillip Rivers ended up being a great franchise quarterback for the Chargers for such a long time that everybody kind of forgot about that. But it's like, yeah, no, Eli just straight up said, "I'm not playing there."
I ain't doing it.
If Zion wanted to go to New York that badly, he could have done that. Now, I don't think that's the way to go. And I think to me, especially like, look, if the Pelicans are playing well and they get in the playing position, at that point, it's like, look, they've got a squad that's ready for you. Like, if we're the 10 seed, if we're the 9 seed,
I agree.
If and all we're missing is you, our casual all star, who, like we
Let's
said,
do it. Yeah, you got to be there.
There should be incentive for Zion to come back too. That's the thing. Is like it needs to be. It's on both sides, as we kind of talked about last episode.
I also thoroughly hate that. 1 week it'll be Zion's ready to go, he's coming back, and then the next week it's like, oh, he might need surgery on his foot, and it's like, okay, well, where the hell are we, man? Like I don't know if that's on the team, on the press, or what.
Both. That's kind of what it's been the whole time. Like I don't think Zion has always necessarily taken care of himself off the court in terms of conditioning, and I think that that's stuff that he can control. I also think the organization has not exactly handled it correctly and has not always made winning moves. I think they're starting to turn that around a little bit here, but like I think it's on both, and I do think it's like we talked about it last week, but like that Mardi Gras float was gross. Like that was gross, and I get the frustration, but it's like that's a real bad look from a pretty good sports city in New Orleans. Like,
and you don't want
to treat him. Wait till he's if you want to do that when he's gone, then so be it. But it's like you can't do that while he's still there.
You didn't see the Sixers doing that to Ben. You know what I mean? Like they didn't. I mean, there were comments made, so don't get me wrong. I know people said some not great things.
I'm not letting the fan base off the hook that easy, but it wasn't that blatant.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't egregious like a float during Mardi Gras. So. Either way, I know we mentioned Tyler Hero. I feel like it fits the podcast to talk about the revival of White Man Can't Jump. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did see that, and I have a double whammy with this because I saw this, and so Jack Harlow is going to be in White Man Can't Jump: The Revival.
Yeah.
And I read an article that apparently Will Smith and Michael B. Jordan are going to do a sequel to I Am Legend.
Yeah.
And this just furthers my belief that Hollywood is the most washed place of all time. Like, it's just over. Like, they don't have any new ideas. It's just, are we just going to, all they're doing is reboots and sequels at this point. If you're not convinced. The MCU and you're not Star Wars, like, what are we, it kind of feels like everything else is MIA. And I'm going to bring up, because I have a comedy question for you. After, because we're gonna have some fun warm up jumper thing. But let's go back to White Man Can't Jump first.
Well, and here's my thinking: is I think a lot of times they'll have an idea for a movie, and then realize it's pretty close to a movie that already came out, and so to already have that like kind of built-in audience, they say it's or they form it a little more to be a revival of that show. Or something like that. Like if you come out with a basketball movie and they're like, well, we could come out with this basketball movie and maybe people will watch it. Or we can come out with this basketball movie and say it's a revival of White Man Can't Jump. And I think that one's less of a, of a angle on it. But they do this with a lot of things. So it's like, then you already have people that were like, well, I like that movie. Maybe I'll like this one, or maybe I'll hate it. So now I have to watch it to figure out if I like it or hate it. But you're not going to get better chemistry than what we had from the first movie. I just don't think it's going to happen. So
years later, no one is asking for this. Like there hasn't been the demand for it. It doesn't feel like it needs a sequel. The story was complete.
But I'd be down for a movie that is centered around basketball, whatever it ends up being. You know what I mean? Like
that's what I'm saying. Do something different. Like you can still make basketball movies. Just we don't need sequels for everything. And that's kind of my point. It's just like we're at a point where we're only making sequels anymore. We're only rebooting stuff from the 90s. Like I know 90s nostalgia is in right now for sure, but it's like, come on, are we gonna have a little creativity here? And that gets to my next point. Justin, I was talking about this with my girlfriend, and we had a whole long conversation, and I took it to the group chat, and I'm kind of ready to go out here with this. And this is a crazy, insane statement that I'm about to say. It might be like, it's nuclear tape. You ready for this?
I'm holding on to my chair.
There has not been a funny movie released in theaters since 2012.
Oh, boy. I don't know.
Think about it.
I'd have to.
What's the funniest movie you've seen that came out recently?
Well, what's the movie that you are I guess would be the quote unquote last one that came out in 2012?
I think the last couple of funny movies that came out were 21 Jump Street.
Okay.
Bridesmaids was really funny. Like, dude, there's so many between like 2000 and 2012. When you think of all all those Will Ferrell movies. The Hangover came out then.
Yeah.
40-Year-Old Virgin came out then. Like there are so many. The Seth Rogen films, like Knocked Up was hilarious. Like we could talk, we could have a whole podcast going over all the funny movies that all aged well. Like we saw Wedding Crashers on TV the other night, still hilarious, aged
Yeah.
really well. Dodgeball is hilarious. Like even like there were so many funny movies between then, between like between like 2000 2012, and we were legitimately talking like I can't think of a funny movie that's come out in theaters since then that is aged that well, that we're still making jokes about. Like
Does
if you throw on 21 Jump Street right now in 2012, I'm gonna laugh my ass off. Like
does
undoubtedly, like it's funny from start to finish. I can't think of one.
and I wonder if you like does like a Deadpool count? Because like it's comedy, but it's still a superhero.
And so that's the question that I had is where it's like, you know, how do you count the Marvel movies? Because I love Deadpool, both of them. Deadpool and Deadpool 2 were both phenomenal movies. I cracked up at large portions of them.
Yeah.
I don't so like for the sake of this argument, I'm not calling it a comedy movie because it's a superhero movie. Same with MCU. Obviously had plenty of moments that made me laugh, but I don't. They're not comedy movies to me in the way that Wedding Crashers is a comedy movie, or even like Zombieland, man. Like Zombieland came out in '09. That movie was great. And
I
that's like
know.
one of those where it's more half and half. And I will say I did like the sequel to Zombieland that they put out a couple of years ago. I thought it was pretty good overall. But yeah, I'm at a point where I'm really struggling. And again, tweet me and tell me I'm wrong. The closest one I could think of is like, or I thought was We're the Millers, and that came out in like 2013, I think. So what? We're going to extend that by like a couple months? Like that's the only one I can think of recently.
We Are the Millers is a good one. My parents watch that like way too much,
Really?
honestly. Yeah, it's weird. And honestly, so I'm looking at Film Gator right now. They have some weird. I don't know. I mean, their category is a little debatable. It's set at comedy, but like La La Land and Inside are on this. So Parasite's on this. So I don't know if those count as
We're
comedies.
reaching. We're reaching.
Right. I haven't seen Nice Guy, but I've heard good things. That came out in 2016, so I can't speak on that. Uh, I mean, it's thin. Like if we're going through it, it's thin. Like I don't see much on this list that make me
Like,
go,
how
no,
did
I
this
got to call you out
happen?
for this.
How have we not made a cut? How does this happen? Like, why is no one talking about this?
Yeah, dude. I mean, look, I'm on page number 3 at this
There's a
point.
deeper, darker link here,
Ted,
Chuck.
Ted came out in 2015.
Ted
Ted
came out.
2, Ted 2,
No, I was gonna say I was like I saw Ted in college, and I
Ted
didn't think
2.
I got to be honest. I didn't think Ted was that funny. Like
No,
it's okay, but I remember seeing the first one in theaters. I haven't seen the second one, but the first one came out when I was in college still, and I graduated in 2013.
yeah, the second one came out in 2015, according to this site, which I'm still a little suspicious about.
Like there have been some sequel, like the Anchorman sequel came out, like 22 Jump Street came out, but
What about Get Hard with Kevin Rock, Kevin Rock, Kevin Hart, and Will Ferrell?
I got to rewatch it.
2015.
That might be one. But like, man, is that the best one in the decade? That's the best movie. Get
It's
Hard.
listen. I'm literally just anything that I see that qualifies as a comedy. I'm looking at the
Right, like if it made me laugh one time, we're for an argument here. Where it's like
right.
super bad, literally the whole movie from start to finish made me laugh.
Dirty Grandpa was pretty funny.
I didn't see it.
Okay, that one was pretty funny. That came out in 2016. But again, that's still those are older. Like on the beginning of your dates that you're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. And again, tweet me if I'm wrong. Tweet Justin if we're wrong. This is just something that like I've really been putting a lot of thought into. And like I've even asked like one of my best friends is a film major, and I even asked him and I said, "Yo, you have to have something, right? Like there's some movie I'm missing." And he didn't really have one.
No, dude. Like I'm going through and there's not. I mean, we're on page 10 at this point.
Yeah, anytime you're hitting page 10, it's real bleak, and the answers are bleak out here. I'm confused. Maybe we need to make a comedy movie or something, or maybe there's some deeper, darker link we don't know about. Who knows?
Yeah, we need to get comedy back in the movies again.
Like, bro, it's been a pandemic, and Ukraine just got invaded. Like, I feel like the world could use a comedy movie right now.
Does Eurovision Song contest.
So that is probably maybe the only one. I gotta rewatch it. I thought it was kind of stupid, but then I kind of was laughing a little bit at it too.
Yeah.
That
How I felt.
might be the only one that I can think of.
Yeah. All right. We can move on. We can
All
get
right.
back to basketball.
Either way, I got to think about it, but that dawned on me the other night. And don't make a sequel for everything. Like I know this is already coming out, but it's like, come on, we got to do something better. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
I'm doing it a little differently this time. I'm not quoting a player tweet. I'm just
Okay.
going to give a bunch of stats about a certain coach. Overall record of 1,196 and 365 losses. That's .766 for anybody wondering. That's the all-time winningest men's basketball coach. Coach K also has 97 W's in the NCAA tournament. That has a 572 win to 75 loss home record. Went 11 undefeated home seasons. Has coached 68 NBA draft picks in his time. 3 of those were overall number 1 picks: Elton Brand, Kyrie Irving, Zion. And for anybody wondering, as of Thursday, the cheapest ticket that you could get for his final home game was $3,250 on StubHub.
Yeah, Mike Krzyzewski is quite literally an institution, and I mean, I don't remember a basketball existence without Coach K.
I don't.
Love him or hate him.
I didn't know he was in the military either.
Yeah, love him or hate him, you got to respect him. What he's done for the college game, to me, one of the more impressive things too is how he's kind of adapted to the one and done game. I know he probably didn't love that at first. You know, Duke for a long time had 3-4 year stars there who would go on and play in the NBA then.
Yeah.
But you know, like we said, obviously with Zion, with RJ Barrett, with Cam Reddish, that squad, those are guys that all went pro right away. Super legend, multiple national championships, and you know, he never coached pros like that. But he did coach Team USA, so a little bit of experience on the professional level as well. Multiple gold medals. All the guys that played for him respect the hell out of him. You know, he a certified legend. It's going to be weird. Like I'm not as much as I love the NBA. I'm not a big college hoops guy like that.
I will be for
man,
a month.
You got to pay homage.
I will be a college guy for a month in about 5-6 days.
Yeah, everybody's a college guy for 4 days in March, but
yeah, until my bracket doesn't count anymore after the first round, because all of them were wrong apparently.
I'm hoping Hofstra can get in, man. They got to win the CAA tourney. We got College of Charleston. This is Saturday. We got them Sunday night. Got to win 3 games to get in.
Okay.
They won the CAA 2 years ago, and then the whole tournament got canceled because of the pandemic. So, you know, fun times. Shout Speed Claxton, though. Hofstra first-year head coach. Let's see if he can get him in. Hofstra legend, former NBA guy. Speedy had a bunch of years. I think he played for like 9 or 10 years.
Okay. We'll have to have a little underdog story going if they get through.
I just want to dance, bro. I don't even care if we get blown out in the first round. Like, look, I know what it is. Just like, can I get one tournament game?
Let's do it. That'd be cool. Also, you can follow us on YouTube. We talked about it. We do a lot of the Top Shot pack openings on YouTube when they happen. We did get our 33rd follower.
It's a good number. 34 is a real good number too.
Yeah. So now we're looking for 34. If you want to be that, find us Driving Dish NBA on YouTube.
Yeah, and so the question is, like, you know, it's almost which legend you want to pick. I mean, if you're going active, it's easy. You got Giannis, like Giannis 34 right now. But I mean, if you're talking all time, you got Shaq, you got Hakeem Olajuwon, you got Charles Barkley, you got Paul Pierce, you got Ray Allen. Like,
you're putting yourself out there naming all of them, though. If you forget one, we're gonna get called out again.
No, I looked at this one. No, there are no Hall of Famers I'm missing this time. A couple good players, but no, I ain't missing Patrick Ewing this time. I promise.
Okay,
but 34 is a good number for sure. Definitely get that. Listen to the podcast anywhere you find a podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes. We'll read them on the show. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Player FM, Google Play Store, Amazon Music, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us. And now a word from our sponsors.
So at this point, I think it's safe to say the 76ers are pretty good. The Harden trade has worked in our favor as of right now. It's still a small sample size. And the thing I keep trying to tell myself so that I don't overreact is some of the teams that they played haven't been great teams. So you have to take some of that with a grain of salt, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm hyped.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, that's pretty much the only argument you can have right now. And I mean,
And
it's
that's
not
what
even
I
that.
and that's what I put out. I said the only thing that I will listen to somebody tell me that's trying to discredit or hate on the Sixers is the competition that they've played so far. Um, like they played the Knicks twice. So I get that argument. And it's like, okay, well, I can't control that. So let's like revisit in a few more games, Like they do
Yeah,
have some good games coming up.
they beat the Knicks twice, but they also beat Minnesota on the road. They just beat
Yeah,
Cleveland at
but
home. Minnesota's won
Cleveland,
35 games. Come
I know
on.
Cleveland. I can get behind. They've been losing actually the past
Well,
few,
no, but
but
they had a good comeback. They were down 21 points to Cleveland. Like they came back. Like Cleveland was playing really well last night.
an observation. They did that to the Knicks the second time too. I would like to not be down by 20.
Well, yeah, I mean that was. I mean, dude, they got. I think the Cavs were shooting like 78% at
Yeah.
midway through the second quarter. At that point, it's like, holy crap, guys! Like I didn't even watch the first night. That was gave up 43 points. Um, no, I mean, yeah, it's been phenomenal. I mean, what else is there to say? It's just been the three of them have been able to carry so much of the offensive load with Harden, with Embiid, and with Tyrese Maxey. I mean, look, as important as getting Harden is, like at the end of the day, like getting Tyrese Maxey and his development and how much he's been able to just step up even more playing between these two guys. I mean that's the key right now.
Yeah.
33 points certainly put him on the national stage the other night. But it's been pretty consistent. I think he's been over 20 every game since Harden's got here. He's confidently stepping into the three and making it. I think that's one of the more important elements of his game. He was fast last year. He's always good at attacking, but the fact that he's splashing that jumper too, and it's just like again, it's one of these things. I'm going to bring back something we always used to say on the Driving Dish podcast. Like, kid's just got the juice. Like, he's not
Hmm.
scared of the moment. He makes the right play. Like, he just consistently. It never looks too big for him. And I think that's been one of the most important things is Embiid has quietly been dominating, and obviously his life has gotten a lot easier with Harden. Like, how consistent Embiid is every night. Like, I say quietly in the sense that we just expect it at this point. You know what I mean? It's not even really jumping off the page anymore. But with Harden, just especially end of games, being able to close things out. And to me, more importantly, it's not even the scoring, it's the passing. Like Harden has been such a phenomenal passer and getting guys in their spots and get wide open looks. I think, if anything, there are multiple times where the Sixers need to just like take the shot and are so willing to share the ball now. I know Tobias Harris is always going to be a kind of a target. But that is one thing is where it's like, I need Tobias to pull the trigger. Like, whether he's making it or not, it's like, if you get an open look, you need to pull it. Like,
Hmm.
you're still Tobias Harris. Like, at this point, you only really need to score between probably 17 and 20 points, given the way that everybody else off the bench has been contributing as well. Like, yeah, the early returns are great. It looks like they can beat anybody in the Eastern Conference. We got a while to go. They've got
Defensive
it.
defensively, I guess if you're going to knock, it would be the defensive side of things because they're lower, at least rating wise. They're still top 10, but the I guess that's what you could, if you're going to critique, is maybe a little better defensively. Don't get down by 20, like we were just saying.
No, my knocks. I'll get into the knocks in a second. Let me tell you, I guess, what's working first. 'Cause, I mean, there are a couple of things that there are just, like George Niang was a super underrated pickup. Like that dude is another one who just has the juice. He makes the right play every time he comes off the bench. Every time there's a momentum swing shot, like he just consistently is making the correct play. I think keeping Danny Green was really important too. Again, a guy that's won 3 championships on 3 different squads. I
Yeah.
think that type of locker room experience is really valuable. I mean, obviously, I wish there was a planet where they could have kept Seth Curry and Andre Drummond. I'd be talking a lot more smack right now if they could have
Yeah.
kept both of them in the locker room. But no, you have to feel good. They're going to play Miami tonight. Granted, Miami's not at full strength. I don't think Jimmy Butler's going to play. They already ruled Kyle Lowry out. I don't think PJ Tucker's going to play either. So, and again, we're going to talk Miami a
Yeah.
little bit later here after Ballin and Fallen, but I think that's a good test. I mean, the Sixers' schedule is pretty tough the rest of the month. They've got Brooklyn. They have Miami again later in the month. I'm pretty sure they've got Dallas. Here, let me just pull it up real quick. Obviously,
Brooklyn should be a fun one though. I'm
Brooklyn's going
sure
to be a
that'll
fun
be.
Brooklyn's going to be a fun one with Kevin Durant back, and we'll get to Brooklyn here in a second. Um, but yeah, no, the Sixers' schedule is pretty tough to close the month. It's a little easier in April, but I mean, we're going to find out pretty quickly. That whole good team thing is going to get thrown out. So they got Miami
Yeah.
tonight. They got Chicago on Monday. Then they got Brooklyn. Orlando, Denver. This schedule has just decided to reload on me like 4 times. I'm actually gonna like toss my laptop against the freaking wall if this schedule does this again. Um, I'm just buying some time. I'm
No worries.
filibustering here.
Well, here, so I'll go back to your comment about
All right, here we go. My bad. Denver, Cleveland, Dallas, Toronto, Miami, and then they go out west. They've got the Lakers and the Clippers, the Suns, and the Bucks and Pistons to end the month. It gets a little easier to end the season in April. The couple of games they have, but that whole they're not going to play good teams is going to go
gonna
out
go
the
away.
window here pretty quickly, and especially in the Eastern Conference. I mean, we talked about this till we're blue in the face. Like the standings are completely up for grabs right now. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody is in the mix. Like you're trying to stay out of play-in position at this point, realistically. Um, like that's going to get found out real quick. But there's a lot to be excited about. The things that I wouldn't be excited about, at least early on, are the only reason again that there's three things that concern me. The big three things that concern me. Number one, the backup center position. The backup center position has historically consistently been a problem since we've had Joel Embiid. Ironically, they got it finally fixed this year with Andre Drummond, somebody that I didn't really remotely think was going to fix it. And of course, he just had to be a part of the trade, so they don't really have that now. Paul Millsap, like again, great player, great career, looked pretty bad so far. There's no way
Mm-hmm.
around it. I'm a pretty big proponent of playing Paul Reed. Like I think I'd much rather see Paul Reed get those minutes. I think there's some upside there. We're not talking about much anyway. The Sixers have brought DeAndre Jordan in. I got to be honest, I couldn't be less enthused about that signing. I think DeAndre Jordan kind of sucks at this point.
Well,
He's
well,
washed out
well.
of two teams at this point. Like, yeah, he can catch lobs, but like he doesn't really stay in front of everybody anymore. Like, I feel like he's playing off rep at this point.
Yeah, I think it's well, and it might have been a James Harden thing. Like if James Harden wanted it or wanted him, then maybe there's a side of that
How many
too.
stars are we going to see one DeAndre Jordan in the past few years and not pan out for
I
nothing,
know.
not listen on that front?
But the lob part of it could be cool. I mean, we saw a little bit with the Nets last season,
If
and
DeAndre
so
Jordan's playing more than 6 minutes in the playoffs, I'm going to have an aneurysm.
well, that's fine. And to your point, there are some other players that could potentially see those minutes. So I hope from a coaching standpoint, we're not just like, well, this is the bigger name, so we're plugging him in, and here we go.
And that's what scares me, low
Yeah.
key. The backup center is there. It's Doc and it's Tobias. They're the two things that I think can really like hold this thing back. Tobias just I don't know what it is, but for as much as Maxi and Niang have the juice, Tobias just has none.
They took
Every
his
time
they took his juice.
like every time we need a big shot, every time he gets an open look, he either passes it or dribbles into a contested jumper. And like again, he wouldn't even play terrible last night. I think he had 15 points on seven of like 13 shooting or something like that. But it's just like he was 0-5 from beyond the arc. It just feels like again, I think he's out of place in the offense to begin with. So I recognize that adjustment, and he only really needs to be the fourth guy at this point. But that's kind of my point. Is it's like Tobias Harris, make a freaking wide open layup for the love of
Mm-hmm.
God! Like finish your layups, dude. That's the biggest thing that's killing me right now because he is engaged on the defensive end. Like he's honestly been pretty good defensively. Like that. That's the only reason I'm not more worried about that. And because of course I think they have enough to clean up otherwise now with the top three. And then just Doc, man, I do. He keeps saying they're going to keep two of them on the floor at all times. I sure hope so, but like I really just hope Doc Rivers doesn't Doc Rivers this thing. Like I think the Sixers are going to win in spite of Doc Rivers, and I'm still kind of furious every time I see Ty Lue coach in the Clippers, knowing that we could have hired Ty Lue.
Yeah, yeah, and I think if they do lose out in the playoffs, wherever it ends up being, I think there will be a heightened spotlight on Doc.
Oh, I think
They're
he's
already,
gone. If they don't make it past the second round, I think Doc is gone.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It'd be 2 years. Like there's
2 in a row.
expectations
Yeah,
now. It's championship or no, yeah, it is. It's championship or bust realistically in the locker room. Like I think that's the mentality. I don't think it should be that way. Like I don't if they lose to somebody like Milwaukee or like it all depends on the situation come conference finals. If they lose to Phoenix in the finals, like I don't think that's necessarily a loss you reevaluate everything just because it happens. But yeah, no, if they were to flame out in the first or second round, God forbid, because it even could be first. Like that's the thing is the whole East is good. There's no weak matchup in the Eastern Conference.
right.
And so at that point, like, now I don't think they're going to, but yeah, if they lose in the first or second round, I think you're definitely looking at Doc Rivers in the light for sure.
Yeah, and so I can get behind that. From the Nets side of things, they haven't been. It hasn't been great. But Durant is set to come back, so I feel like we can't really judge too much um, about them. You know what I mean? Like I
Oh,
I know right now everybody's kind of like hating on it and saying Sixers won the trade, blah blah blah. But it's like we got to see it still. You know?
yeah, they're not fully together. I mean, they just got Kevin Durant back. I know they lost to Miami the other night, but I liked a lot of the action that they were running with him and Seth Curry. It was at
That
home,
loss
unfortunate.
though, that loss to Miami hurts because they were pretty short staffed. Jimmy didn't play either, so it was like that should have been a win for the Nets in theory.
Well, and the Nets are at the point now where they can't keep losing. Like the Nets are
Yeah,
at 8. They don't have that luxury anymore. They're 32 and 32 right now. And again, I still think they're going to turn it on here a little bit, but it's like you're a half game up on Atlanta. You're only a game up on Charlotte right now. I'm not suggesting they're about to not make the play in game. Like the next team out is Washington. Washington is not going to chase them. Um, but you can't be playing in that 9-10 game if you're Brooklyn. Like if you got to play two one and done games, it only takes one. It can get weird. Like that's the situation, especially depending
well,
where you are.
yeah.
Like if it's a home game, you may not have Kyrie Irving.
Well, and that was some talk. I brought this up to you off the mic, but there were some sources that were going around talking about James Harden and how he was worried about having to play like the Raptors and Kyrie's vaccine status. And it's like, well, if you got to play the Raptors, he's out for the whole series. He ain't playing home games. He's not playing away games. So, like, what do you do there?
No, I mean, and a lot of that, like again, with Harden didn't handle that situation necessarily the right
No,
way. I'm not just
no.
going to put my Sixers cape on, but it is a situation where, yeah, I think the Kyrie Irving element of it didn't get played up enough. It's like, yeah, he
And
was frustrated because Kyrie Irving was playing half the season because he won't go get a vaccine.
and I think it's worth mentioning. Joe Harris is out for the season now. Had to get the ankle surgery. That
Yeah,
that came out this week.
well, and them getting Curry is huge in that regard because
Yes,
I think Curry plays a now again. You wish you had both come playoff time, but
right.
Seth Curry being able to play a lot of that Joe Harris role, it doesn't totally fix it, but it helps a little bit. It negates it a fair amount. And then obviously Ben Simmons, we don't know what's going to happen there. I don't think he's playing in Philly in 5 days. Apparently, he's still ramping up this back injury. Um, I'm going to sound like a hater if I go for moving forward. So we'll see what happens. They got to get Ben on the court. I hope if you're Brooklyn's sake that you get him within a month. I think you want to see a little bit of what it looks like. You don't want to be figuring this out come playoff time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of I think the biggest concern is get these guys all together so that you have the chemistry, so that you're not figuring it out as you go, and we'll see if they can get that going, and hopefully, at least it'll be enough to keep them out of the play-in tournament.
And that's the most important thing right now for sure. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. And so I'm going to start with DeMarcus Cousins this week on this episode. He's balling for me this week. DeMarcus Cousins, 31 points last night against the Rockets in a 116 to 101 win for Denver. 10 of 14 from the field, 3 of 4 from beyond the arc, 5 boards, 3 assists. Just an absolute, or I'm sorry, 9 boards, 4 assists. I just
Have
the
yourself
screen
a
jumped
night.
on me. But yeah, have yourself a night, Boogie. And for me, it was really interesting. Like he was a great pickup for Denver, and they've got him locked in for the rest of the season. He played really well in his 10-day stint for Milwaukee, and obviously Milwaukee's a meaningful team that's playing. They're trying to win basketball games. I was really surprised that more teams, the Sixers, didn't try to take a flyer on DeMarcus Cousins.
Well, and I kind of agree with you. And from the Bucks side of things, it's actually going to be my balling, so it just kind of fits into it with Brooke Lopez being cleared for practice 5-on-5 contact. That was part of the concern they had going forward, and that's why you have a guy like a Boogie or Ibaka to hopefully fill that if he couldn't come back for the playoffs. And now it looks like you might have both, which is cool. So maybe that's why they didn't go for the whole Boogie side of things. Maybe it just wasn't the right fit. But I agree. It seems like it could have been a good move for the Sixers if they had taken that shot.
So the Bucks are playing their best basketball this season, I think, right now, and are flipping that gear as we get
Yeah,
closer to playoff time. Like they're the defending champions. We know what
turning
Milwaukee
it
can do.
on.
There's a chance they run it back this year. Brooke Lopez. is going to be essential, especially if they play the Sixers. Like Embiid is going to roast Ibaka alive if that's the main, or and Bobby Portis. Like we already saw it kind of last game when they matched up. They need Brook Lopez to compete with him to wear him out for a little bit, because that's the thing is on offense too. Like he's going to stretch Embiid out of the paint on offense, splash mountain over there. So yeah, no, if they're able to get Brook Lopez back, like they haven't had him for the large majority of the season, I think he's like one of the most crucial boosts that anybody could get potentially, as we get into the Eastern Conference playoffs. Milwaukee can win in spite of him, but I think especially if they end up matching up against the Sixers at some point with Embiid, they're really going to need him for that matchup.
And I would say I don't think there's too much of a chemistry concern because they've been together, they've played together, they know what it is. Like he in theory, if he can play and he's healthy, should just be able to step right in.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about him getting back in.
There might be a conditioning thing, but that's that it's not a chemistry thing if there is a concern.
And you still have the luxury now where it's like you can the conditioning thing isn't really that big of a deal because you can ramp him up. Like we're still in March, we have a little bit of time here. But yeah, I mean, ideally, if the playoffs ended today, Milwaukee be playing Cleveland in the first round. Like I know Cleveland's been down a little bit, but like that's not an easy matchup. No. And oh, by the way, Cleveland's going to get LeVert and Rondo back. They're not even at full strength right now. Boston's playing their best basketball of the season. Like there's a whole lot of people that could have been balling this week.
Yeah.
Again, the Eastern Conference is really good. I feel like we can say it till we're blue in the face. Fallen for me this week is the Warriors, who have lost 3 straight and are 3-7 in their last 10. This is a team that was going game to game with Phoenix and now finds themselves a half game up of Memphis, going in the wrong direction. They still have a 3.5 game cushion on Utah for 4, but there's a very real chance that they're the 3 seed come playoff time. We thought they could be pushing Phoenix for number 1 overall and by proxy best record in the NBA. I think it's also it should be a little concerning. I mean, Booker's been in COVID protocols right now. Obviously, Chris Paul's not playing, but like Phoenix has kind of stayed afloat. Great win over the Knicks last night. They beat Portland the other night, again with Bridges and Ayton really stepping up, with Cam Johnson too, really getting a lot done for them. Like the depth is concerning for Golden State, and I guess that's the biggest thing here is that it's been a double whammy of Andrew Wiggins has started slumping big time on offense, and just the defense isn't there the way it needs to be, which, I mean, if anything, it shows the value of Draymond Green, because this all started as soon as he went down. And I think that's what you have to feel good about is if you're the Warriors, it's like, hey, in theory, if we get a healthy Draymond Green back, we looked like one of the best teams in the NBA when he was playing. But it sure doesn't feel like, I mean, him and Gary Payton Jr. are really the only two, it feels like, who have put up any sort of defensive resistance these past couple of weeks. And yeah, like you said, I mean, if they end up in a situation where they're 3, and it sure looks like it at this point, like Memphis is playing significantly better basketball than them right now. Steph Curry's being asked to do a lot. It feels like the wear on his tires are starting to show a little bit. Klay Thompson is still working himself back in. They got to, they're going to need their other guys to step up here. And I think the depth, which we've praised for a lot of the season, isn't quite stepping up the way he needs to.
Yeah, and like you said, they're 3-7 in the last 10. I think though, like if the Grizzlies pass them, I don't necessarily feel like the Jazz may get them, though there is a realistic, like they could. I mean, Jazz are 8-2 in their last 10, but I think at least from a standing standpoint, that's a good bit that they would have to kind of catch up. And so yes, there's concern, and so I would say though, don't rush everybody back or try to get it back to full staff, just to maybe get the 2nd seed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, make sure everybody's healthy for the playoffs.
You got to be healthy come playoff time.
Right.
That's the most important thing. But
also, this is the time to get that depth that we were talking about, that experience to be able to perform and like you were kind of alluding to, they're not doing it right now.
We've got a barn burner of them and the Lakers tonight on national television. So can we get the Lakers off national television?
I'm so done talking about the Lakers. Like,
Charles Barkley summed it up. Like it is. It's just and we're not going to really get into it, but it's like, man, we got to flex them. Like that's a prime example. Like you couldn't flex the Sixers Miami game tonight. Like, I know it's last minute, but it's
Well, even
on.
that was the what was it? And this is no hate on. I think it was Heat Knicks for Harden's first game as a Sixers. Like you wouldn't flex that to be
Oh yeah,
Sixers
no, we got to get
Timberwolves.
the Knicks off. No, get the Knicks off TV too.
Yeah,
They're another one. I'm done with the Knicks. Get the Knicks off TV.
yeah, 25 and 38. We don't need to be seeing them play. So my fallen is actually going to go to a team that is got a worse record than that, 20 and 43, and that is the Thunder. But it actually has nothing to do with the players.
Okay.
So I'll let you, for the podcasters, I'll let you listen to this call. For people watching on YouTube, obviously you'll see the play.
And Nas is such a good roller too. As J-Mac is so good, the ball boy. Oh, no. That's a technical foul.
Well, how is there no whistle?
That has to be a whistle.
That's unbelievable.
So I don't know what's worse, the fact that there was no call.
What are the refs doing? The forward is the refs. Call the technical foul, like you said. What is going on?
Yeah. So for the podcasters, what happened is the Wolves got a breakaway, a steal, and had a breakaway. But the guys cleaning up the sweat or the water were still there, so he ran right into him and missed the layup.
Well, yeah, even the putback, because you had two of them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You had two guys who were on the court wiping it up, which, like, I understand. You're in the half court. Like, if you think you can do it in a split second, but, like, they did not get out of the way in time. One got basically plowed over completely.
There was zero effort to get out of the way. I would say that, too. Like, there was zero effort to move.
And look, like, I get it. They're moving. These are NBA players. They're moving pretty quickly, but yeah, it's a bad look. I mean, it's a bad look because it's like you got to get out of the way. Number one, number two. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. This could have been a real ugly for both of their counts, for the guys on the court cleaning up the sweat, and for any of the players. Like, imagine if somebody had gone down. God forbid, this would have been a complete disaster. But what the hell are the refs doing?
You gotta call
that stoppage. Like, like the fact that they didn't even retain possession after that play. The Timberwolves didn't retain possession, and again, they ended up winning this game big. It didn't matter, but like, what are we doing here?
Well, and on top of that, it's like I feel like maybe there is a rule, I don't know, from that position, that job's rules that you have to do. I feel like you should never turn your back to the players on the court. Like, you should always be facing. So like if something like that happens, to get the hell out of the way. You just back 100%.
Up. Yeah.
So maybe that's where the mistake was made, but also call something. When I first watched it, I watched it without volume. So I had no idea that the announcers were like, "Yo, what? Where's the foul? Where's the tech?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Is there a rule? Like, should they have called something there?" And like, yeah, definitely should have. So,
you're going to see the home team just start sending out their cleanup crews. They're going to see this.
That's what I said.
NBA better reel this out. It's like
that's the bad. Oh, never mind.
Jason Kidd's going to be pouring water on the court again. He's going to spill the drink.
Well, I was going to make a joke, but I don't want to do the Thunder like that. I was going to say that's the best defense we've seen from the Thunder all season, but I don't. We can move on.
Jason Kidd, man, that's another one I may have to eat crow on. I said so many bad things about Jason Kidd, and Dallas is playing really good basketball right now, and he's a big reason why. They're playing great defensively. Like, that's been the turn for them. If Utah Dallas holds as a first round series, like I've kind of said, like, we got that 4 in the West, and then there's like a little bit of a drop off. Dallas, I think, is in there now. Like, Dallas could beat Utah in the first round, and then Utah's got some huge questions if they get bounced first round, like big time that they may have to worry about.
I don't wish that debate on anybody because that's not a fun one to go through.
No, it's not. No, and I'm not rooting for that at all. Like, and there's scenarios where, again, I think if you're Utah. Hell, given the way the Warriors are playing, I think I want to get up to 3. I don't want to play Memphis, and I certainly don't want to play Dallas, who, again, since the Dinwiddie trade and with Porzingis, like, it feels like they're starting to figure it out. It also helps that Luka is just the man still. Like, Luka's probably playing some of the best basketball of his career.
But out of your options, you probably have your best chance against Dallas.
If you're Utah,
right? Between like that or
how do the Warriors finish?
Okay.
That's my thing. It depends on the Warriors finish. Memphis is playing great.
And if they're healthy,
I don't remotely want to play Phoenix. I think Phoenix is the best team in the NBA. So yeah, at that point, we'll see what happens. But it's gonna be fun playoffs no matter what. We do want to go back east now here a little bit. Miami, who, in spite of all the talk about this Eastern Conference standings and this and that, the one consistent has been Miami. Miami's at the top of the standings right now. They've got a 2-game lead on the Sixers in Milwaukee as of recording this podcast. Again, a game with the Sixers tonight. But this is in spite of a large amount of injuries, too. Miami, I mean, Jimmy Butler has been kind of off for a little bit now, and he's missed portions of the season. But I mean, even against Milwaukee the other night, he only had 6 points. Like, he's dealing with injuries right now. Lowry's dealing with a little bit. PJ Tucker's dealing with a little bit. Obviously, Bam Adebayo missed a ton of this season. And I think that's one of the things that you got to hang your hat on if you're Miami. I think that's been one of the most encouraging things. All this is, besides the fact that you're staying afloat, that they've won all these games right now, that they're still the 1 seed. It's the fact that Bam has come back post injury and just looks great. He's closing out games. He just, he looks like Bam Adebayo in the bubble. And then Tyler Hero just off the bench. I mean, like we said, averaging 20 plus off the bench. Miami's bench has been killing teams. Like, their overall net rating is like is plus 10.3 right now. That's in crazy. Terms of their bench. Like, their starters, for some perspective, I think are at like a plus 4.5. Like, that's a massive difference. They are just, Miami's fourth quarter struggles have been the one thing that I think I'd be worried about. I talked about what I'd be worried about with the Sixers earlier with Miami. I do think it's the fourth quarter, like, especially against Milwaukee the other night. It really, like, they kind of melted down and lost that game. Like, that was a very winnable game. And again, credit to Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday for making shots, but that would be my worry. Again, you're not going to be playing your bench deep into the fourth quarter in playoff games. And if you don't build that big lead and sustain that, that maybe that's a problem spot. But this is a team, again, that it doesn't feel like has been fully healthy the entire season. They're also going to get Victor Oladipo back again. We haven't really seen Victor Oladipo play basketball, but
I think it's worth mentioning, like, in Houston, in Indy, I mean, the total of the season. So from 2000, what was that, last season, 20 to 21? I mean, he was averaging almost 20 points a game. So it is like, what kind of Oladipo are we getting when he comes back? Yeah. And how does he fit in? And will there be a conflict in terms of fitting into the offense? I don't know. He did only play 4 games for Miami. And so it's a small sample size, and I don't think we can really judge from that. So,
no, yeah, we can't judge for that. Victor Oladipo could very well be awful. Like, it's been that long, but I also don't think he's going to be expected to do much. Like, that's the thing. They're also going to get Markieff Morris back here eventually too, which has been crazy because it feels like that Jokic incident was so long ago.
It's wild,
but that'll of course boost the depth. It's just about getting everybody healthy. I think if they get healthy, they're going to be ready to go, and they're going to be a pain come playoff time. Obviously,
the fact that
there's one of the best coaches in the league.
Well, the fact that they're number 1 in the Eastern Conference without the depth and without all the players being healthy, that should be a area of concern for anybody in the NBA that has to go up against them. Like, as Sixers fans, like, at some point, in theory, we got to go through them. It would be prime, and I really, really, really do not hope this happens, but it would be prime Sixers to get bounced by Jimmy. I would be so pissed off if we're in the conference finals and Jimmy is the one that bounces us out because he should still be on the damn team because we chose Ben and Tobias over Jimmy.
I already feel like, well, we didn't choose Tobias over Jimmy. We chose Ben over Jimmy. But no, they I feel like Jimmy Butler already chumped us the year after he went to Miami and then just went to the finals.
But he'd do it again. That's my point, is it would happen again.
They could. They have a lot of guys come playoff time too. Again, Duncan Robinson, as long as that guy's on the floor, he can flamethrow at any time. PJ Tucker is a guy you want come playoff time, like, just knows what he's doing, has played a ton of meaningful minutes. Yeah, Miami's really good. I was just making sure your mic was okay, honestly. I don't know if anybody saw it in the video. I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to fall on you there.
No, I got myself depressed now because I convinced myself that's what's going to happen in the playoffs.
Oh, Justin, you already listen. I've already played out losing every scenario that you possibly could think of. Like, I can see Doc Rivers doing something really stupid come playoff time, where that's the thing is, if I'm Miami, I don't worry about Eric Spoelstra doing something stupid come playoff time. And that's kind of my point, is where, that's one of their things, is they are extremely well coached. They have guys who have been here. Like, we've seen, we're not that far removed from the bubble. Like, pretty much the core of this team is still there. I know there's some minor changes. Goran Dragic isn't there, but
they essentially replaced Goran Dragic with Kyle Lowry. So, like,
Yeah, I mean, Lowry's been all right this year. But I mean, he does have 8 assists a game. His scoring is way down. He's only averaging about 13 points a game. But again, I think that it's the experience
If
matters.
you're
He's not going to make the wrong play come playoff time, and that's as much as potential is and potential to go off
that's
scoring wise. Like that matters too.
and that's and so like you look at it from calorie. I just tried to combine his first and last name. You look at it from Lowry's perspective. You have Bam. You have Jimmy. You'll potentially have Morris. You'll have Oladipo. Like you don't have to score. You just have to distribute.
Yeah,
Just get the open guy.
Yeah, Gabe Vincent's been really good for them this year.
Yeah.
Caleb Martin's been really good for them this year
Duncan,
too.
like you were saying, yeah.
It is that bench is worth watching. And again, I think that is the key for. They just got to get healthy. But I mean, they're still winning in spite of it. They're 8-10 in their last 10. They've got 42 wins. Like they've played more games than the Sixers and the Bucks have. But yeah, I mean, their point differential is positive. They're positive 4.7 right now, I should say. Like they're among the highest in the league. They're just checking boxes. If anything, the other thing that I guess you would worry about is the road record. They're only 21-15 on the road, but they're 21-7 at home. And if they're the number 1 seed, they're going to have home court advantage the whole time. Yeah, their best advantage right now is they're slept on. That is the one team where it does feel like has been disrespectful. They've been in charge the whole time, and it feels like we're talking about the Sixers rightfully in terms of the trade. Everybody's been talking about Brooklyn because they just have the firepower. Milwaukee's the defending champions, but even Chicago, like people have been talking about Chicago way more than Miami.
I feel like Bucks could also be in that category of being slept on a little bit. I know they're the returning champs, but
we're getting there. I think people are beginning to realize it because it's not just Giannis. It's like, dude, Chris and Drew Holiday are killers in the clutch as well. Like it's just they get in close games and they know what to do, and they all can make their own shots. Like that's the most important thing is they all make. I mean, Drew Holiday is the one who hit the buzzer beater against or the game winner against Miami the other night. It just again, what does Drew Holiday always do? He's not the most flashy guy, but he always makes the correct play.
You just do it right. Yeah.
If they get Brook Lopez back, like I said, Milwaukee's probably the favorite in the Eastern Conference right now. I mean, we said that post-Harden trade. Like, I think Milwaukee probably is the team to beat right now.
You don't think the Heat get it just because they're number 1 and doing it at not full health status?
It's funny because the Heat play Milwaukee really tough every time, too. Like, those are always great games. I mean, obviously, Miami got them a couple of years ago in the bubble. I mean, Milwaukee got their revenge last year, but no, I'm not. And it's because of Giannis. Like, it just comes down to Giannis. Like, Milwaukee has the best player in the series.
Best case, again, Sixers hat on, best case scenario is the Heat and Bucks meet in the second round and take it 7, and the Sixers handle whoever they have in the second round in 5 or 6 games and get a little bit of rest. That way the other team doesn't have anything and we go right into the conference finals without them. That's best case scenario.
Dude, there's a scenario where it's like I think the Sixers are going to have to probably beat one of Brooklyn or Boston in the second round. Like we haven't talked about Boston. We may have to do that next week.
Yeah,
Boston playing and you know me, I hate saying this sentence like with the fan hat on, but like Boston's playing their best basketball of the season. They're really good defensively, and they're coming together and clicking at the right time. Like I would not want to play Boston remotely come playoff time. And oh, by the way, they have like one of 2 people on earth that can actually guard Joel Embiid. Al Horford.
Don't even get me started on Al Horford.
Well, I don't blame Al Horford for that. I blame the front office for that.
I know.
That's the front office overreacting and not knowing what they were doing. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Drive-In Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, TuneIn. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yes, and find us on YouTube. We're looking for number 34 subscriber. We do a little bit of different stuff. We put some of the clips of the podcast up there, and obviously the pack rips, which we do as a podcast too, but there's a video version of it if you want to check out the moments and stuff like that. So YouTube, just search Drive and Dish NBA.